Welcome to this special episode of Jimmy's Jobs of the Future. Nadhim Zahawi has just been appointed to one of the biggest jobs in the UK as the Chancellor of the Exchequer. We had him on the podcast just last month talking about his role as Education Secretary and what he'd done as the Vaccines Minister. But the second half of that interview, we spoke to him much more about his background, how he'd arrived in the UK as an 11-year-old fleeing Saddam Hussein's Iraq who couldn't speak any English. He came here and he became an entrepreneur. And so that being what a lot of our show is about, we asked him about his entrepreneurial journey and how he created jobs. One of the questions that we always ask their guests is how did they come up with the name for their company? And that's where this interview starts. The backstory of Nadhim Zahawi and how they came up with the name YouGov and how it became an internet sensation. I wanted to talk a bit about your kind of entrepreneurial journey, and the first question I kind of wanted to ask you was, where did the name YouGov come from, and what was the story behind its foundation?
Yeah, totally. It was no taxation without representation. Boston Tea Party. This was in 2000 when the internet, I think it was only off memory, only about a third of the country had internet access. It was still America Online, free serve portals world. No one had done an online survey. And the initial idea was that you would pay your council tax online, and then you would give your opinion to your local council as to how you want your money spent.
Oh, right. So the polling was the sort of secondary.
The polling was the secondary product.
Okay.
And of course, we very quickly worked out that actually there are much larger players in doing sort of legacy tax systems integration. And what really began to work was the polling element of it. So we pitched the idea to FreeServe at the time, and we became the news channel on FreeServe. When you clicked on news, we were producing the news for them, but we called it interactive news because every news story, and we hired a bunch of young graduate journalists and some more mature journalists as well, like John Humphreys and others, and one Boris Johnson, in fact, who used to write for the site, and Faye Weldon. We wanted people from different, who had different followers, in terms of their writing. But the condition was on everything we produced, they'd have to ask questions. So even the sort of the daily news story, would have a battery of questions below it.
So it's more of a media company.
It was then all about basically gathering public opinion. And then the sort of the real success of the idea was the traditional market research companies were still doing, some were still doing clipboard, but actually were being replaced by the likes of ICM, if that name means anything to you, who actually was the sort of the revolutionary at the time, because they went to telephone surveys. And so we came along, and the idea was basically, if you build a large enough panel of human beings online that is broadly representative of the adult population, then you pull off the computers, the machines would then take a smaller sample that is much more representative of the adult population randomly, invite them to do a survey. Then actually that's better quality data, because actually all market research, all polling is, we're all, I used to say this when I was in the industry, that we're all in the business of modeling. And it's whether you can build a better mousetrap, better model, to try and capture how people are feeling, how they're thinking, what they will do. And that was the real success, because we were able to prove there's an academic study, sort of high caliber, the sort of the gold standard, which is called the British Election Survey. It goes around the world as the American Election Survey, the Australian Election Survey. And Professor Anthony King, God bless his soul, he passed away a few years ago, noticed us because we contributed to the British Election Survey. back in 2001,
Yeah.
the first election that we called accurately. And then they gave us our first break with some work for the Telegraph. And you know, from there on, the rest is history. Once you prove the model.
And that was that the moment that you knew, you thought, well,
this is a big idea.
Yeah, we've got something.
I thought this is a big idea. Absolutely. This is going to transform the world because it's faster.
Yeah.
It's much better value for money.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it can be deliberative. It can be, you can return to the same respondents with telephone and face to face. It's a one-off survey that by the time you've delivered the data and the report, it's out of date. But you can't go back and say, "Oh, I'm interested in this subgroup here.
Yeah.
Why did they say that? Can we go back to them?" You can't. Whereas actually panel-based research is so much more powerful.
Yeah, amazing. And this artwork, I believe, was what hung on the offices at YouGov. So can you talk us through some of it as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. So Stephen Shakespeare, who is a wonderful human being and a great friend of mine, and he co-founded YouGov, and was a lover of art, and he knew a great artist called Derek Boshier, and Derek is one of the UK's sort of pop artists.
Yeah.
Never became as famous as Peter Blake, and Peter Blake actually came to the show that Stephen put on for Derek Boshier at the time, but no, it didn't become sort of Warhol or a Blake. Because I think he partly wanted to continue to teach as well, and Stefan did this exhibition for him, and we each of us bought 3 pictures, not for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I've taken them wherever I go. They've been very lucky for me because they were in my YouGov office, and then they moved with me to my parliamentary office when I was a backbencher for pretty much. I think I was there for 8 years, and I keep reminding certainly my colleagues, the 20.
You're lucky to fit them in a backbencher's office.
I know. Well, you were then given slightly better offices because if you weren't promoted, especially, and I spent I think 7 or 8 years really loving the backbenches and doing lots of work. I was on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. I was on the Business Select Committee. Apparently, someone told me he was on the Panorama Post Office scandal the other day, which was terrible, I have to say. And but nevertheless, they've travelled with me all the time, and I love them. I just love the sort of the vibrancy. You've got to love the stuff that you the art that you hang on the walls. Because you got to live with it.
Because you have had quite a non-linear, like not only just education career, but also like political career as well. It's been sort of. Yeah, it's not always been like going forward.
You've known me for long enough to know that. At one stage, I thought I was going to go from the sort of the rising star to elder statesman with nothing in between. I had, I think it was 7 or 8 years on the back benches.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I now, do share with my, younger colleagues and the 2019 intake that I am the definition of it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
So many of my intake actually, got promoted very quickly into government, and actually taking a bit more time, spending more time on select committees, spending more time, on the back benches, I think is invaluable and has certainly served me well. And then just, being someone here who was working on a particular project like the apprenticeship stuff with Nick Bowles here, or then as Children and Families Minister, and then as Business and Industry Minister in Bays, and then of course, probably the biggest, most important job I'll ever do in my life, which is the vaccine deployment. One of my friends said to me at the time when we began to really succeed with the vaccination program, he said, "It will be the first line of your obituary." Most important job I'll ever do. But I think it's important to get that sort of ministerial experience because it serves you well when then you're asked to take on a whole department.
And how did you find the transition from kind of business to politics? Because when we predominantly interview entrepreneurs on the show, and when the mic stops, they often say, I've often thought about giving it a go, and I'd like to do it and whatever, but there's a lot of hard yards to put into it. And if you've built a successful business, there's lots of hard yards people don't see there as well. But how did you find that transition?
So I'm slightly unusual because I caught the political bug very early on. So I was a councillor in Wandsworth from '94, and so I always thought that one day I'll end up in Parliament. And then I was very lucky in being part of the YouGov team and the YouGov idea, and to be able to take that company public in 2004 as well. And so, politics was always a passion for me. A couple of similarities. One, when you first enter Parliament, is very much like a startup. Now, what do I mean by that? Each and every member of Parliament, backbencher, is a small enterprise. Yeah, right? You've got to build a small team. I arrived in this building, in Portcullis House, and you walk in 2010. We've just about to form the coalition government, and you get handed a laptop. You open it, and it's already all logged in with your name. But there's 800 emails saying, you're my member of Parliament. Please help. Yeah. Right. There's a post bag about the same, and so you've got to very quickly put together a small team, of 2 or 3 people that can just deal with the casework, because they're the most important people. They're the people who put me in this place, right? You must never ever forget that. But you're a small enterprise because you need to you basically serve your constituents, serve your customers, make sure you deliver for them on time, and you want to try and find your way around this space. Become famous for something. What is your passion? Obviously, the business select committee for me was the thing to get onto, and I did almost immediately, and then foreign affairs select committee. So there are similarities to that, what I would call the sort of startup culture. You've got to be able to wake up in the morning and just motivate yourself and engage and find all the levers. Form coalitions across the house to try and get a particular idea or a bill through Parliament. The other area, which I think has been incredibly helpful for me in ministerial office, is running a large organisation. We took YouGov from 6, 7 of us in a shed to a few hundred in a slightly bigger office to 1,000 plus people on 3 continents, now as many thousands. Change management is hard. I had to survive the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009 and right-size the business. I don't believe people wake up in the morning and go to work because they want to do a bad job. They get frustrated if they don't know why you're asking them to do something different, which is why actually much of the challenge is how do you communicate with people to explain to them. I always give the example here to my team to say, when I wake up in the morning, I like my cup of tea in a certain way. If you're going to change it, you better tell me why. Otherwise, I'm going to be grumpy all day long. And change management is hard. But actually, if you explain to people, be clear about your strategy and what you're looking to deliver, people will join you on a journey, especially if you can evidence it. Right. And actually, those skill sets are equally valuable in business as they are in running government departments.
And did you feel it was a risk starting YouGov?
I was, single. I was a marketing director at the time. High risk to leave my job and obviously do this. Had the really great support from my family and my parents. But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur one day. I always thought it's something that I wanted to do. but it's not without its risks. But I've loved every minute of it.
I guess one of the things that I'm trying to sort of tease out a bit is you say you want to be the Secretary of State for Aspiration. And one of the things that I feel that we could do with more is a bit more risk taking. And I suppose, when you've left the country aged 11, starting a business, does it really feel like a risk in comparison?
When you put it like that, I hear what you say. Maybe that's the sort of the immigrant in me, that you have a different risk appetite, and I think you're right. I do think that we need to encourage more entrepreneurs. Although I have to say, I'm seeing in my nieces and nephews and my own children, this generation is much more in tune with entrepreneurialism. And wanting to try out different things, being very comfortable with having, multiple careers in their lifetime than even my own generation.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think? I think what technology's done to empower young people. My children are digital natives, right? I still remember the fax machines, and that was a huge innovation.
Yeah,
you see a document that's coming from the other side of the world, almost in real time through that sort of horrible paper that then fades away. So I think actually having a device in your pocket, which is a powerful computer that you open up and you basically see everything in the world. Much of it good, and empowering. I think does open young minds to the idea of I can try out some of these things, which is a great thing in my view. The one thing that we've always been challenged on in the UK, we're sort of quite good at the startup culture.
Yes,
we are less good at growing businesses and then keeping businesses. The British entrepreneurs will sell out and then want to play golf and do other things. The US entrepreneurs will sell out and start the next one almost immediately after that, and the Germans never sell, and they keep these Mittelstands and they just grow these family businesses. I just think having, and this is something that I know Rishi's passionate about, having a focus on creating more management maturity in the UK economy is something that's good. Having small business men and women thinking about developing themselves professionally to be able to run bigger businesses and keep bigger businesses.
And how did you do that with YouGov in terms of that innovation side of it? Because it's as an entrepreneur, you get to 50 people. Each of these things feels like a big milestone, right? And it's how do you do that? And how did you find the IPO process as well? Because that's a quick turnaround that you did it in, right? Sort of founding it in 2000, IPO in 2004.
The IPO was one of the best things I think that we did. Certainly for our shareholders as well. Why? Because once you became successful, we were getting offers of borrowing money or private equity as well. But actually, for us at the time, the AIM market worked incredibly well. And has continued to work well for Stefan and the team, who's continued to do brilliantly at YouGov. But much of it was really accidental, if truth be told, rather than planned. Entrepreneurial. But there wasn't a sort of playbook. That there wasn't a guide that says here's what you should do. but we found it incredibly helpful. And I think actually in many ways, I go back and say to you, I think, we need a culture of manager that is comfortable with growth and holding on to their business, and not selling out too early. Actually, in many ways,
and being a bit more ambitious.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was doing the business industry role, I remember, because I guess part of my role, I covered the whole, pretty much most of the economy. So other than financial services and a bit of digital, I was the minister for foundation industries like steel. I was minister for construction, minister for nuclear, minister for life science. And I co-chaired the Office for Life Science with the brilliant John Bell. And, one of his frustrations is, some of our brilliant scientists would then spin out companies out of universities, but sell out too early. And I remember, I can't remember the name of the business, but someone showing me in the Office for Life Science, business that sold out for $500 million, but it became part of a very large business, where the product is today a $15 billion product, $15 billion product. So, and that's what I mean by creating a management culture that's more comfortable with growth and holding on to growth. To create the giants of the industry.
And trying to get beyond because sometimes when you've been an entrepreneur, you sort of feel like it's been by look, not design, and getting comfortable with that. It's not that. Like look plays a bit of it. I wanted to take you back to when we first met, because I remember saying to you, "What do you want to achieve in politics? What do you want to do?" And you said, and it's really stuck with me, that you wanted to be education secretary, and if your colleagues thought you were up to it, you'd like to be prime minister. And it's really stuck with me, that first bit of that, you saying, if my colleagues thought I was up to it. Is it an ambition you still hold? And look, we know there's no vacancy. We know the prime minister's doing a great job, but is it an ambition you still hold?
I think every member of parliament must feel that they can at some stage put themselves forward to lead their party and their country. It's a privilege, right? But the thing that I really want is to be able to do this job and complete this journey. Why? Because I think we've been talking about it. If I can deliver the same life chances I had to every kid in the country, even those whose parents don't have the wherewithal or have no parents, then I've done something truly great, as big as what we've did on vaccines. And I can't do that in the 2.5 years that I've got to the next general election. So I want Boris to another term, and I want us to have another 5 years, I hope, and really scale and get to 2030 when I can say to you, hopefully, in another interview, that I've actually completed the journey and delivered on that.
But it would be an amazing demonstration, right? Born in Iraq, standing on the steps of Number 10. I mean, like all the things you want to achieve. And I agree, you've got a long way to go before all of that.
I pinch myself even just thinking about that I am the Secretary of State for Education in Her Majesty's government, right? The Member of Parliament for Shakespeare, the heart of England, right? This is I absolutely passionately believe this is the greatest country on earth. To have a constituency like Stratford-on-Avon, which is 96, 97% white, affluent, middle class, yet they vote for Nadhim Zahawi as their champion, as their member of parliament. The man they send to Westminster to represent them. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the luck I've had in life, but also I really, really want to complete this journey. And I don't want your listeners to if you're passionate about something,
Yeah.
you need to be clear about it, and you
Yeah.
need to make sure people understand that passion. And I just want to do this thing right, because
Yeah.
I think I would have made it every week, every month that goes by, where there are kids in our country, right, who don't have a great teacher in a great classroom, in a really strong, high-performing school, as a family of schools. For me, it is, you know, it's almost like when we were doing the vaccine.
Yeah.
Every day that went by that we're not vaccinating, then we're losing lives. And these are life opportunities for these kids, and I've got to deliver it.
Yeah. And but when you did the vaccines, you went totally. I remember speaking to you during the process.
Yeah.
Like, you were totally nailed on it, because if you got that, then it was other things would fall into place further on.
And that's, you know me well enough to know that's my DNA. You know, I don't like leaving jobs,
No.
you know, half completed.
No, but it was genuinely, I remember coming away thinking, like, there's a weird thing in British politics where people aren't, British politics is all about ambition, so it should be, but there's this weird thing where people sort of stand back from the brink, like saying, well, I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister. And I would just remember thinking, like, and the way you qualified it with your colleagues, like, even though I was like a 22-year-old at the time, it stuck with me as such a kind of neat way of phrasing it. And it's, yeah, it's a very interesting prospect. That's as far as I'll go on that side of things.
Thanks for listening to Jimmy's Jobs. One of the ways that we make this show possible is by the partners that we have that support us. They can be like today's, like the Octopus Group or the FinTech Alliance, but also we've done more consumer-facing brands like Primary Bid and Beer 52. You can go to our website and check out more details at www.jobsofthefuture.co. The other way the show is made possible is by me going into organisations and talking about jobs of the future and the talent that is required to fill those jobs, how you retain them, how you attract them, and how great teams are built that can achieve superb things that we hear about on this show. If you want to know more on that, drop us a line at hello@jobsofthefuture.co. We always love hearing from our listeners.